So welcome to our data cleaning class. Today, we'll be cleaning data using Power Query. Power Query is an efficient tool that helps us to transform our data. And part of transforming our data is ensuring that our data is set for analysis. The objective of our class today will be to transform raw FIFA 21 players data into clean analysis-ready dataset. When we import the data, you are going to see how messy the data is. So we'll begin to look at the problems and how to solve them one after the other. The first step will be to import data into Power Query. So let's do that. We go to our data tab in Microsoft Excel ribbon. From the Get and Transform group, you can see Get Data. We click on Get Data. We want to get data from a file, and the data is currently in Excel workbook. So we'll say from Excel workbook. So it's going to open a folder for us to select the file. Okay. So say data cleaning with Power Query. We then import. So what we have now is our Power Query navigator. So we want the FIFA 21. We want the FIFA 21. This is the data that we want. Okay. So when you click on it, you have a preview. Because we want to transform our data in Power Query, we'll click on the transform button. So when you click on the transform button, it opens the Power Query editor. So what we have now here is a Power Query editor. You can see we have a change of ribbon to the Power Query ribbon, and the group of commands to the Power Query group of commands. So a little bit of how we can navigate Power Query. You can see we have a data table where we have columns, and I want to show us the various columns. Before the column title, you can see the data type attached. Okay, you can see ABC in text data. So it helps you to actually look at your data to understand if your data is in the right format. Another way to identify if your data is in the right format or not is to look at your data. Textual data or string data originally or by default are formatted to the left, while numerical data are formatted to the right. So you can see that we have a problem here in this contract column already, apart from the fact that we have a special character separating the start date and the end date. Our values are aligned to the left. So it is as text. Apart from being aligned to the left, you can also see here that it's a text data. Okay, you can see the ABC here. It is text or data. Notice that you have your apply steps recorded, and the reason why you have your apply steps recorded is because it automates the data cleaning process or the data transformation process. If you want to go back a step, you delete that step. If you delete that step, you'll see that you go back one step. Okay, let's have a preview of our data set. We have the ID, we have the name, the long name, photo URL, and so on, and all other key metrics that were reported. Let's look at where we have some issues now. In the name, you can see that there are some issues here. For instance, in Kylian Mbappe's name, you can see that there are some special characters there that we have to deal with. So when you come to this again, you see the long name and the name are similar columns. So we'll decide which one to keep and which one to take out. Then we don't want the photo URL as well as the player URL, right? We don't want that. So we'll be removing that. When you look at now the contract date, you see that the contract date is not actually a date. If we filter this, you can see it can't filter appropriately. So there's something we can do. We can split this contract date so that we have contract start and contract end. It will serve us better that way. So when you come to the position again, you see that in some position, you have 3 positions, others 2, right? So we have to split them because it looks like there are certain players that can play in several positions. So we need to be able to filter based on those positions and perform our analysis as well. Then when you come to height, you can see that our heights are text data. So there's no way we can perform analysis with this because we have them as text. So you can see already the columns we need to deal with. We have issues here in the values, wage, and release clause columns. We have some special characters. Apart from the special characters, we also have M indicating millions, right? So we need to convert these into the appropriate data that we need for analysis. You can come to the wage column again and see we have similar challenge, just that here we have K indicating 1,000, right? So we need to remove the special characters, then convert these to values, multiply by 1,000 so that we have the appropriate values. So you can see we have this start here. You see that we have special characters here as well. We need to deal with these special characters. The same thing here in the IR column. Now that we have basically diagnosed our data, we have looked at our data and seen the challenges that we have before us, let's begin to deal with them one after the other. So let's start our cleaning process. So the first columns we have to clean, let us look at the value, wage, and release clause columns, right? So these are the columns here. So we have a lot of work to do here in these three columns. So let us go ahead and deal with them. The first thing we are going to do is to replace values. We are replacing the M values within the wage column. Under Transform tab in our Power Query Editor, you can see replace values. You click on replace values, okay? What are the values we need to find, or what are we replacing? We are replacing M, right? So in values to find, we will enter M. So, but since we are replacing with nothing, what we need to do is to leave the replace with blank, okay? Once we do this, we click OK, you can see that our M will just go away. The second step we need to do is to make sure that we split our column. Why do we need to split this value column? We need to split this value column so that we remove these special characters. The value column still highlighted. We'll go to our transform tab, then split column, right? You can see split column. Now we want to split column by number of character. We are splitting column by number of character because we can't split by delimiter, okay? We can't split by delimiter. And we can't split by delimiter because we have at least 3 delimiters here. We have these special characters, 3 of them. So that will be picking one delimiter one at a time, and it will take our time. So what we need to do, we need to split column by what? Number of characters. So we'll click number of characters. Now, how many characters do you count before the characters you want to use? We counted 3, right? 1, 2, 3. And we can see that it's applicable all through the column, right? Those are the conditions that must be met. So we'll say number of characters, we'll say 3, right? Now, this is very important. Where is the split happening? You can see that the first one say once as far left as possible, right? The second say once as far right as possible. Then the third say repeatedly. What we want to do, we want to split as far left as possible. We want it to count from the left. We don't want it to count from the right. If you count from the right, that means it is 5, period, 3. That's how you be counting. And that is not what we want it to do. So we want to count as far left as possible so that it counts 1, 2, 3. That is from the special characters. So we'll check once as far left as possible. Once this is done, we go ahead and click OK. If we click OK, you see that the entire special characters have been taken out, and we now have a clean data. You see, immediately we did that, these became numbers, right? You can see this became numbers. So we will just remove this, all right? We remove this by right-clicking on it and say remove. We want to remove that column. Then we can rename this column, say value, okay? So now this is done, right? The only thing left is that we have not yet converted these to millions, okay? We need to convert this value column to a million. And so what we need to now do is to ensure that we add what? We add a custom column that we will now multiply by a million so that it converts every value that we have in our value column into a million, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. To add a new column or a custom column, what we need to do is to click on add column here, then come to custom column here, click on custom column, okay? It will open this. So we need to give our custom column a title, else it will call that column just custom. So we'll call it what? Let's say new underscore value, okay? So we need to impute our formula now. Our formula will be direct. Why will it be direct? We just want to multiply everything in that column by what? A million. So we'll look for it under available columns here so that we don't make any mistake. I think it's the value column. So we'll click on it. Okay, then click insert, or you just double click on it. So we want to multiply this column by 1 million. All right. So this is 1 million, right? Make sure you look at this. Okay. It's no syntax errors. If we had maybe an error, it will tell us that there's an error. Okay. For instance, you can see it's a token expected. So because we just took out the multiplication sign. So now it is correct. We go ahead and click OK. Once we click OK, you see our new value column has been added. You can see that everything now is appropriate, okay? This is our new value column, cleaned and corrected. The next we need to do now is to look at the wage, right? And cleaning the wage column is just as direct as we had cleaned the values column, okay? If we highlight this date column, you can see it is on any data type, right? So we can pick dates, okay, to basically convert it to an appropriate data type, okay? But again, if you look at this, we definitely need to split this column. With the column highlighted, we go to split column and we'll say by delimiter. And Power Query can pick that custom delimiter like I explained earlier, which is a /, right? And because we want it split into 3 columns, we want to say at each occurrence of the delimiter, right? So let's go ahead and click OK. We can see now that we'll split into 3 columns. And we don't have anything like timestamps. If I have not changed that data type, if I have not changed it to date, you will see that we have timestamps that we need to also remove, okay? So let's try to filter this and see. So this looks like we have 1 to 10. Let's go here so that we can easily know day and month. So you can see that this is appropriate for day, right? Because we have 31 days here. So let's make this month joined, okay? And we'll make this day joined. And then we can make this year joined, okay? We make this year joined. So if we are working with this in our dashboard, it will be easy for us to select based on those that joined in a specific month, in a specific day, and in a specific year. So that is the essence of cleaning data, is to make data accessible, right, for analysis, and ultimately to make our analysis correct. Because in the end, is to communicate insights, right? And how do we communicate insights when we don't clean our data appropriately? So that is why we need to clean data. So the goal of cleaning data should be at the forefront of every of our data cleaning endeavor, because that is what is going to inform us about what we need to do. Okay, so you can see that we have WF column as well as our SM column here having similar issues here, okay? So we can go ahead and split this, right? You can see we can split this by number of characters, or easily we use digit to non-digits. So let's highlight the column, we'll say split column, and we'll say digit to non-digits. We'll take out the digits from the non-digits. Okay, so let's remove the non-digits. Right click and remove the non-digits. Rename this by double-clicking and removing the 1, right? Okay, let's do the same thing here for this, because you can see we have a lot of special characters here. We have 1, 2, and the period, which is about 3, right? Making it 5 special characters. And we don't want to go ahead and stress ourselves. We need to be productive, right? So highlight the SM column and say digit to non-digits. So we have it, digit to non-digits, right? Let's remove the SM2 because it has characters that we don't want. And let us rename this to SM as it was, okay? So we have cleaned this, okay? Oh, we have the IR column here with the same issue as well. So let's highlight the IR column, split column, or say digits to non-digits. So let's remove this column, rename this column. So we have that cleaned and good to go. While we are done with that, we need to actually remove some columns. So let's remove long name, because long name and name are the same. So we can just right click and say remove, right? Let's remove that column. We can remove more than one, right? Hold down Shift on your keyboard and click the columns you want to remove. So let's right click and say remove columns, and we remove those columns, okay? Now, if you come here, you can see that this is not spelled correctly. You can see Aguero 2 is not spelled correctly. So to clean such data, because of we have names, right? And we don't have the mess equally spread across. They are different, right? Looking at this data, I can realize that the e's is what have changed to this sign like this. So because I see Kante, this should be E, right? Because I can see Kante, I can see Mane, I can see Mbappe, right? If you look at that, I think those with the E's are those that have that. So what I can do is that I can come to transform. I'll say replace values. Oh, sorry. We have to first highlight the column. We'll click on replace values. What are we looking for? We are looking for that character that represents E, right? Or the E that was corrupted based on our findings. So we're replacing it with E. Once we do this, we click on OK. If we click on OK, you see that Mbappe has been corrected. You see that Kante has been corrected, right? Are you seeing that? For Aguero now, we believe that this has been corrupted from U. Can somebody check the spelling of Aguero for us?
It's U. Aguero.
Okay, Aguero.
Yeah.
So let's believe that this is the corrupted U. So we want to copy this now, highlight this column, and now say replace values. We are looking for this value and want to replace it with U. Okay. So we go ahead and click on OK. We can see that Aguero is now cleaned. So with this now, it will be easy for us to just look at our data set. And you see this now, this is Di Maria, right? So let's take this from Di Maria and we'll say this was a corrupted I, for instance. Highlight this column, replace values. We want to search for this, and this was I. And we go ahead and say, so if we look at that, our Di Maria has been cleaned. Let us load this back. So we have loaded it, and you can see we basically have that corrected now. All right, so let's continue our data cleaning endeavor. Remember, I said data cleaning endeavor depends on the data you have or the data set you have and the challenges you have with your data set. So the first data set, we've done what we could in cleaning the first data set. So we are beginning this data cleaning endeavor to ensure that we can learn other data cleaning techniques as relating to this data set, basically trying to expand our data cleaning scope. The first data cleaning we will do with this data set is to see how we remove duplicates. So, but before we do that, let us take this data set into Power Query where we'll be performing our data cleaning and transformation. So let's head on to our data tab again. Then this time we'll take our data into Power Query from table or range. So click from table or range. All right. Make sure your table is wrapped appropriately and all your data is within this range. And also remember to check my table has headers, okay? Then click OK. So we are now in the Power Query editor, okay? A glance of our data set. We have customer ID, order ID, customer name, email, states, products, category, quantity, price, order date, and birthday of customer. You can as well see the state of the data that we have before us and see the issues that are within them, okay? So let's go on to see how we remove duplicates. But before we remove duplicates, what are duplicates? Duplicates are rows in your data sets that are exact copies of one another. In retail data such as these, duplicate could mean a single sale is recorded multiple times. And this leads to inflated revenue or stock movement. With what we have just discussed, you could see, for instance, the name column here, we have Linda Davies and Linda Davies. But for Linda Davies to qualify being a duplicate, the entire row entries must be similar. But in this case, you can see that the customer IDs are different, the order IDs are different, then the products are different. That is to say that this same customer or this customer is a returning customer instead of a duplicate. So the data is not a duplicate, the customer is just a returning customer. You can see the same thing for Michael Chen, right? So how do we remove duplicates? And how do we ensure that we don't end up removing values that aren't exactly duplicates? All right. So to remove duplicates in Power Query here, we will have to highlight our entire data set. So to highlight entire data set, you can just go ahead and say Control+A on your keyboard. So we head on to our Home tab, right? Then we can go to Reduce Rows command group here, and then click the drop down on remove rows. When you click the drop down on remove rows, you can scroll down to remove duplicates. Then to remove duplicates, you just go ahead and click on remove duplicate. So duplicates, if any, on your data sets will be removed. And you can see we still have these values here, right? The name still repeats, like I said, showing that they aren't exactly duplicates, okay? But if you remove a duplicate, say a column-wise duplicate, you'll be making a mistake because you'll be removing a duplicate from within a column, right? But not the entire data set. That is to say that it may qualify as a duplicate here in this column, but not your entire data set. So be guided, okay? So the mistake will be that you highlight a column and then you go and remove duplicates from those columns. You see, we have removed those duplicates and we have just unique names appearing now. But the error is this, that we had removed the data entries from other columns as well that did not satisfy the duplicate definition, okay? So to go back to our original state, we just have to remove our step here under the apply step by clicking on the X. So the next we'll need to do will be to handle missing or null values. So in your Power Query editor here, you can see that missing values are represented as null. So this null will not be present in your spreadsheet. So this null just goes to show us that we have missing or blank cells within our data set, okay? Why do we have to handle null values before our analysis? We already said that null values are missing values. So we should know that missing values in critical fields, for instance, like product here, you can see that we have missing values here. When we have missing values in critical fields like product, this goes to show that the entries may be useless or misleading. Because when we look at product here, although we have price, the product price here, we have the order date here, this entry may be misleading because you can see that there is no product category, though we have an entry. So the question is that, is this an oversight? Was the product not recorded appropriately or the category not recorded appropriately? So with all of these, we can easily come to a conclusion on how we can handle such missing values. Secondly, calculations like averages or totals can be incorrect or fail entirely, okay? Especially when we have missing values from areas or columns, critical columns like price, right? The first we can do is to remove blank rows. Under reduce rows, you can see we have the remove rows here. We click the drop down and then we can just scroll down to remove blank rows, okay? Then click on remove blank rows. You'll see that the blank rows, if you have entire blank rows, the blank rows will be removed, okay? Now, the second one we have to do is to remove rows with missing values in key columns. Let's head back to the first method. The first method will be useful if we have maybe certain rows that are entirely blank. You highlight your entire data set and then click the drop down on remove rows and say remove blank rows. Okay, this will remove the entire blank rows you have within your data set. All right. Okay, so to remove rows in specific columns with missing values, like we were discussing earlier, let's use quantity to be our key column, okay? And then in the quantity column, we want to use the filter method, right? We'll use the filter method, click on the drop down on this filter and uncheck null, okay? We will uncheck null and then click OK. you can see that we've dealt with every null within this quantity column, okay? And the nulls that we have unchecked will also reflect in the other columns as well. So they will be hidden as well. So to check that, you see we initially had more than 84 rows, right? Let's check it back and see so that you get clarity. If we clear this filter, you'll see that we have way more than 84 rows. We have about 105 rows. So let us remove these null values within the product column, or the quantity column rather, and you'll see what we have left, a total of 84. So the third method will be to replace nulls with default values. You can decide to replace nulls with what? Default values. In the email column, we want to replace the null with unknown, right? So we highlight the email column, we click replace values, values to find, let's use null, and then we'll say replace null with unknown, okay? Let's go ahead and click OK. So you can see our null values have been replaced with unknown. All right. So let's try something similar in the name column. Let's replace null with something like not stated. Okay. Let's click to highlight the column. All right. Then we go to replace values. Remember, replace values is under the transform tab. Click on replace values and let's find null and replace it with not stated, or we can say NA, okay? NA, and click OK. We have that replaced now. Let's use another method, and this method will be filling down missing values. We want to look at the order ID now. If you look at the order ID, you'll find out that the order ID is continuous. That is, it follows a pattern. You can see 21, 22, 24, and the 24 because one column here has been removed when we're working with the quantity. You can see that it actually follows. So that is from 32, we will have 33, we'll have 34, right? And so on. So it kind of follows a pattern. So what we will use is that we'll use the fill and down method. So what we'll do now is we'll highlight the other column, then we'll go to our transform tab. Here you can see the field, right? Which field cell values to neighboring empty cells in currently selected column. Okay, so let's click drop down and say fill down. We click on fill down. When we click on fill down, you will see that it follows that pattern to fill up the null value. Okay, so these are the various methods you can use to do what? To deal with null values in Power Query. Okay, let's use the replace values to deal with the null values under states, right? So we will say replace values. Let's replace null with NA, right? And then click OK. So you can see NA represents not available. You can deal with the product and category the same way. For the product, you see we have quantity stated. That is to show that some quantity were purchased, but the product and the category were not entered. So let us deal with that. If you use the fill down, it's going to use the pattern, right? If you use the fill down, it's going to use the pattern to fill it. But now you ask yourself that what if these were not headphones? What if there was something else? Okay. So to be transparent, you can use a statement to show that these products were not recorded. Okay. So what you do now, you can use the replace values. Let's search for null and let's replace the null with not recorded. So you can use N arrow to represent not recorded. Okay, you can see the N arrows and you can check to basically see the number of products that were not recorded, quite huge number of them, right? So let's clear the filter and go on. Let's do the same thing for the category, replace values and say values to find will be null. And let's replace with not recorded and then click OK. All right, the next step to cleaning our data will be standardizing using replace values. Okay, because if we look at this state column now, if we click on the filter button, you'll find out that we have NY here representing New York, right? And we still have this NY representing New York. This happens a lot, for instance, even in gender based data entry, where people can represent M for male and F for female, and go ahead and write female in full and male in full. You understand? So it's important that we standardize these values because without standardizing these values, we will have inconsistencies. So let's work on our state column. And the best way to look at the values you have in summary is just to click on the filter so that you just look at what you have. And what we need to deal with is this NY, okay? Let's standardize it to NY, all right? We can then go ahead and say replace values. Then we are looking for NY. We want to replace it with NY, okay? We click OK, and you can see it has been replaced. You can see we have it standardized. Another thing to look at for when standardizing your value is to ask yourself that what you have here as NA, NY, TX, and so, will you be able to communicate it when you are presenting your dashboards? Will somebody just know exactly what NY means? If you feel like that will inhibit your communication, as in how it's represented in your dashboards, what you will do is actually to standardize it to a value that people can actually recognize. For instance, you can change NY to New York, TX to Texas, FL to Florida, and so on and so forth. You can just do that using the replace values method we used earlier, okay? All right, so now let's go to another technique. And the other technique we'll be looking at is how to filter irrelevant or invalid data, okay? So what does filtering do? It allows you to hide or remove rows that don't meet specific criteria. Like in our quantity column here, it allows us to remove negative quantities or sales with missing infos. We use filter once when we had to take out the null values from this quantity column, right? Negative quantities here may reflect refunds. And if we go ahead to calculate or perform our analysis with those negative quantities, it may affect our revenue tracking, okay? So let us take them out of our data set to have a better analysis. Okay, so let us uncheck the negative values from here and then click OK. So now let's go to identifying and handling errors. Errors occur when values can't be interpreted correctly. Like in this case, in the price column here, you can see we have the division error. Okay, so how do we fix them? We can fix them by replacing errors, okay? So if you ever try to replace errors and you're having an issue, it's probably because Power Query does not recognize it as an error. So to make sure Power Query recognizes it as an error, what you need to do is to change the data type. Right now, our price column is set to any, right? So let's set it to whole numbers. When you set it to whole numbers, any value within that column that is not a whole number or can't be converted will be labeled as error. So this way, it will be easy for us to replace our errors, okay? Power Query will be able to recognize those as the errors we talk of or we speak about. We can enter 0 and click OK, and our errors will be correctly replaced with zeros. Remember, we had to replace with zeros because we are looking at a numerical column. So now let's go to the next data cleaning method that we can apply. We can extract information from this. So why do we have to do that? We do that because analyzing by year, month, or day allows us to identify sales seasonality and compare year over year trends, okay? So how do we do that? We can do that by splitting our columns, but I've demonstrated how we split our columns with dates. So let me use another method, okay? So we want to work on our order date, right? So we highlight order date. So we go to add column. So let's click the drop down on dates. Let's go to year and now click on year. So you can see we have successfully separated our year from our order date. We can separate orders as well. Before we do that, let us rename this. So double click and rename this as order year. So let us repeat the process for the month as well. Click on order date, go to add column, click a drop down on date and select month and say month. It has separated the month. So you can use the same method to select the day. Let's rename this as order month. So if you look at our data set, we have the birth dates column. All right. So instead of picking the year of birth, we could want to generate the age of each customer, right? So that we can know our customer demography, isn't it? To do that, we'll go to add column, we'll click on custom column, and this custom column, we'll call it what? Customer age. Then let's enter the following formula. We'll say number dot round, okay? Open parentheses, duration dot days. We can pick it here from this list. We open parentheses again and say dates dot time local now. We pick it from the list here. We'll open and close parentheses. Then we'll say minus our birth date column. Double click to enter into our formula, close parentheses, and we'll say divide by 365 days, then close parentheses. It says no syntax errors have been detected, so let's go ahead and click on OK. When we click on OK, you can see that we have our correct customer age now. Everything we have done, right, have been recorded in our applied steps. So you can actually rename your applied steps to make sure you can remember. For instance, in this added custom, we can right click and say rename. Then we can say customer age. We hit enter. So we will basically know exactly what we did within a step. So you can do that, okay? So now that we have cleaned our data, we could go further in our data transformation endeavor. We could go further, and that will be us using calculations in Power Query. You can see that we have calculations where we can do statistics, standard, and scientific calculations, right? So we can perform calculations here as well. We can do that using calculated columns. And this is because Power Query supports a powerful language called M language for creating calculated columns. Here we call them custom columns, okay? Calculated columns are new columns you create by applying formulas to existing data. They help you derive more meaningful insights from raw data. And one example of calculated columns we have used is to calculate the customer age. So let us calculate total sales, all right, with our custom columns, all right? So now we have quantity, we have price. So it would be good for us to have a sales column. So let us go ahead and calculate our sales column where we will multiply price by quantity. So let's do that. So we'll go to add column. We'll now click on custom column, and the custom column name will now be sales, right? So we will enter the following formula. Remember, sales will be a product of what? Quantity and price, isn't it? So say equals. We'll go ahead, look for our quantity in our available columns. We'll double click on quantity, then we'll say multiply. You use the Shift 8 on your keyboard, multiplied by price. So we have quantity multiplied by price. This will give us our sales. So click on OK. We now have the sales column. So now the second column we're going to be inserting is to add discounted price. Let's say we had a 10% discount and we did not record it. So we remember that we have to apply that 10% discount to our data before analysis. So we will add a new column, right? And call that column discounted price, okay? It's a custom column. We'll call this column now discounted price, okay? On discounted price here, it will just be us multiplying our price by the percentage discount, okay? So we'll go ahead and pick our price column, then multiply it by discounts, okay? Once we do this, we click OK. We are going to have a discounted price column. So The next will be us computing our profits. And there are various ways you could compute your profits. Assuming that we just have a generic profit. Say, in this case, we don't have an expenditure column from which we could subtract our sales to get our profits. So let's just assume that 70% is expenditure. Okay. So what we will do is, let's go add column, say custom column, then we'll call this column profit. Okay. Then we want to subtract price. So we'll say price. Okay. Double click to enter it here. So price minus price again multiplied by 70% would be 0.7, right? 0.7 multiplied by our quantity. Double click to enter it. So this will give us a value here that is price multiplied by 0.7, which is say 70% expenditure multiplied by our quantity. We'll now take that away from price. We'll have our profit. So let's go ahead and click OK. You can now see our profits. What if we wanted to categorize our sales? Okay, we had calculated sales. Let's categorize our sales. Okay, so we are going to be using the if logic here. So let's add a new column, add a custom column, and say sales category. Then in the formula here, we are going to now use if, we have the sales column now. So let's look for sales here. If sales is greater than, let's use 1,000, then the sales is high sales, right? So high in quotes. Else, if sales greater than 500, if sales is greater than 500, let's say medium. So we'll say then medium is in quotes. Then we'll now go ahead and use the else in quotes low. So what this means here is that if in our sales column, we have values that are greater than 1,000, let's say those values are high, else if, and we want to use more, and that's why we use else if, right? Else if sales is greater than 500, then let it be medium. If not so, if it's less than 500, let it be low. That's what we mean, okay? So click OK, and now we have our sales category where we have categorized sales into 3 with high, medium, and low, as you can see here now. All right. With this data set, we can also calculate our day since order because we have the order date, right? It will be easy for us to calculate day since order. So to calculate day since order, we will just have to enter a new column. Okay, let's enter a custom column now, and we'll call this day since order. Basically, calculating the number of days since order. So we'll enter this now and say duration.days. Okay, let's pick it from the list. And we'll say open parentheses. We want to use datetime.local now. So datetime.local now. Let's pick it from the list. Open and close parentheses. And we'll say minus. We want to pick that from our order dates, right? From our order dates column. Let's double click to enter that. Then we'll close our parentheses. So once we do this and click OK, we will be able to calculate the number of days that is from today, right? The number of days between order and today. Okay, so let's click OK. You are going to see the number of days since the order and today. That is why we use datetime.local now.